Battle of Chaeronea. This battle took place in 338 BCE when Alexander was just 18 years old, serving under his father, King Philip II of Macedon. The battle was fought on a coalition of Greek city-states led by Athens and Thebes. Philip positioned his army with the Macedonian phalanx in the center and Alexander commanding the elite companion cavalry on the left wing. During the battle, Philip ordered a strategic retreat with part of his phalanx to create a deliberate gap in the Greek line. The Athenians rushed forward thinking that they had broken the Macedonian center, but this is exactly what Philip wanted. Alexander seized this opportunity, leading a decisive cavalry charge that smashed through the exposed enemy formation. The Sacred Band of Thebes fought to the last man, but were overwhelmed by Alexander's assault. The battle ended with a complete Macedonian victory, establishing Macedonia as the dominant power in Greece. Approximately 2,000 Greeks died, while the Macedonians lost fewer than 300 men. Battle of Thebes. This battle occurred in 335 BCE when the city of Thebes revolted against Macedonian rule, believing fake rumors that Alexander had died. Alexander marched south with incredible speed, covering around 300 kilometers in just 13 days to reach Thebes, catching everyone by surprise. Alexander positioned his forces around the city walls and began the siege. The Thebians fought desperately, making several sorties, but were beaten back each time. Alexander's experienced troops systematically broke through their defenses, using battering rams and scaling ladders. The city fell after fierce street fighting. Alexander made an example of Thebes by completely destroying it except for the house of the poet Pindar. The entire population was either killed or sold into slavery as a warning to other Greek cities. Approximately 6,000 Thebians died and 30,000 were enslaved, while Alexander lost around 500 men. Battle of Granicus River. This battle was Alexander's first major engagement against the Persian Empire in 334 BCE. The Persian satraps had positioned their army on the eastern bank, expecting Alexander to make a camp and attack the next morning. Alexander arranged his forces with the heavy phalanx in the center, Macedonian companion cavalry led by himself on the right wing, and allied Thessalonian cavalry under Parmenion on the left. Against his general's advice, Alexander decided to attack immediately, crossing the treacherous river. The battle was fierce, with Alexander himself nearly dying when the Persian noble Spiridates struck his helmet, but he was saved by his bodyguard Cletus the Black. Alexander's tactical brilliance inspired his troops to victory. The Persian cavalry was routed and their Greek mercenary infantry abandoned the field. The victory opened the door to Asia Minor. Approximately 4,000 Persians died, while Alexander lost only 115 men. Siege of Gaza. This battle was a brutal siege lasting 2 months in 332 BCE, when Alexander encountered one of his toughest opponents in the unit commander Battus, who refused to surrender the fortress city of Gaza. The city was built on a high mount surrounded by massive walls and was considered nearly impregnable. Alexander was determined to take Gaza quickly as it controlled the route to Egypt. The siege began with Alexander's engineers building massive earthworks and siege towers while constantly under attack from the defenders. Alexander was wounded twice during the siege, first by a catapult bolt through his shoulder and later by an arrow in his leg, showing his personal involvement in the fighting. The Macedonians used undermining tactics, digging tunnels beneath the walls, while simultaneously attacking from above with siege engines. After fierce fighting, the walls were finally breached and Alexander's troops poured into the city. The defenders fought to death with Battus himself fighting until he was captured alive. According to some sources, Alexander's treatment of Battus was particularly harsh, reportedly dragging him behind a chariot in imitation of Achilles' treatment of Hector. The entire male population was killed and women and children sold into slavery. Approximately 10,000 defenders died, while Alexander lost around 200 men. Siege of Tyre. This siege lasted 7 months, from January to August 332 BCE, and was one of Alexander's most challenging military undertakings. The island city of Tyre was considered impregnable due to its position half a mile offshore and its massive walls rising directly from the sea. The Tyrians believed that their city was unconquerable and refused Alexander's demand for surrender. Alexander responded by ordering the construction of a causeway from the mainland to the island using stones from the ruins of old Tyre on the coast. The Tyrians fought back, desperately sending fire ships against the causeway and harassing the construction workers with arrows and siege engines. Alexander persisted, bringing in naval support from conquered Phoenician cities and building massive siege towers higher than Tyre's wall. The final assault involved coordinated attacks from the causeway, the harbor, and the seawalls simultaneously. Tyre fell after incredibly fierce fighting, and Alexander's anger at their long resistance led to harsh treatment of the survivors. The city was largely destroyed and most of its population killed or enslaved. This victory secured Alexander's rear areas before advancing into Egypt. Approximately 8,000 Tyrians died and 30,000 were enslaved, while Alexander lost around 400 men. Siege of Aornos. This siege in 327 BCE was Alexander's conquest of a seemingly impossible mountain fortress in modern-day Pakistan. The Rock of Aornos was a massive cliff rising 5,000 feet above sea level and was considered unconquerable. Even Hercules, the legendary hero, was said to have failed to capture it. Alexander was determined to succeed where even Hercules had failed, and ordered his engineers to build a massive causeway across the ravine using timber stones and earth while under constant attack from above. The construction took weeks, with Alexander's men working day and night to bridge the gap. The defenders rolled boulders down the cliff face and shot arrows at the workers, but Alexander pressed on. When the causeway was nearly complete, Alexander led a night assault with his elite troops, scaling the remaining cliff face in darkness. The surprise attack succeeded, and the fortress fell, with many defenders choosing the leap from the cliffs rather than surrender. This victory enhanced Alexander's reputation for achieving the impossible and secured his northern flank before advancing deeper into India. Approximately 3,000 defenders died, while Alexander lost around 100 men. Battle of Issus. This battle took place in 333 BCE near the modern Turkish-Syrian border when Darius III, the Persian king, personally led a massive army estimated at over 100,000 men against Alexander's much smaller force of around 35,000 troops. Darius had chosen what he thought was an ideal battleground, but Alexander turned the terrain to his advantage, positioning his troops with the sea on one side and mountains on the other, limiting the effectiveness of the Persian numbers. The battle began with Alexander leading a cavalry charge directly towards Darius, while his phalanx held the center against overwhelming odds. The sight of Alexander charging straight at him caused Darius to panic and flee the battlefield, abandoning his army, his mother, wife, and children, who were captured by Alexander. The Persian army collapsed when they saw their king running away, leading to a complete rout. Alexander treated the captured royal family with respect, earning him admiration even from his enemies. This victory gave Alexander control of the entire eastern Mediterranean coast and massive amounts of Persian treasure. Approximately 20,000 Persians died, while Alexander lost fewer than 500 men. Battle of Gaugamela. This battle, fought on October 1st, 331 BCE, was the decisive encounter that effectively ended the Persian Empire. Darius III had assembled a massive army estimated between 200,000 to 1 million men, including war elephants, scythe chariots, and troops from across Persian territories. The battle took place on a plain near the modern-day Iraq, where Darius had even leveled the ground to favor his chariots. Alexander arrived with approximately 47,000 troops, and spent the night before battle studying the enemy's positions while his men rested. Darius kept his army awake all night in battle formation, a crucial mistake that left him exhausted the next day. Alexander began the battle with a diagonal advance designed to stretch the Persian line thin while keeping his own forces compact. When a gap opened in the Persian center, Alexander led his companion cavalry in a wedge formation straight towards Darius. Once again, the sight of Alexander charging directly at him caused the Persian king to flee the battlefield. Despite fierce fighting on other parts of the line, the Persian army collapsed when they saw their king abandon them. Alexander pursued the fleeing Darius, but focused on capturing the Persian capitals with their enormous treasures. This victory made Alexander the undisputed master of the Persian Empire. Approximately 90,000 Persians died, while Alexander lost fewer than 1,000 men. Battle of the Hydaspes River. This battle, fought in 326 BCE against King Porus, was considered Alexander's tactical masterpiece and his most challenging victory. Porus had positioned his army on the far bank of the swollen Hydaspes River, with 200 war elephants, 30,000 infantry, 4,000 cavalry, and 300 war chariots. The monsoon season had made the river treacherous, and crossing seemed impossible. Alexander spent weeks conducting feints, while secretly preparing his real assault upstream. During a stormy night, Alexander crossed the river with 11,000 men. The battle was Alexander's most difficult, with the war elephants causing significant casualties, but Alexander adapted his tactics, using his cavalry to attack the elephants from behind. Porus fought with incredible bravery until he was wounded and forced to surrender. Alexander was so impressed with Porus's courage that he allowed him to continue ruling his kingdom as a vassal. Approximately 12,000 Indians died, while Alexander lost around 1,000 men, making it his costliest victory, but also his greatest tactical achievement. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other videos and hit that subscribe button. See you next time.